Hello everybody, welcome to a new video. Today we're going to continue with our bike, the GT Performer. This week we're going to continue with the brake handles, as you can see on the screen here. I thought we'd just have a quick discussion again about our process here. It's quite a simple piece really, which is why the video's not so long. Essentially we have the clamping piece here, which we can start off with stealing the geometry from our handlebar. So we already have the sizing here, and then we're going to use this reference to basically get the main shape. It's not such a difficult piece of geometry really. We'll start with this main handle, expand out to the lever here. The one thing we will need to do is, as you can see a bit further down here, is do this extraction. So it's not really extraction, I guess it kind of insertion. So we use a Boolean modifier to create this, and then we finish off with these small cylinders, which I guess will take the brake cable. There will be no texturing visible in the end of this video, just because I want to pair this brake lever with the actual brake pads. I'm not sure what the calipers, I guess they would be. So therefore I will not be unwrapping as yet, because I have not filmed that part. So we'll jump over to Blender and we can follow the process. Okay, so let's get going here. First we go up to the handlebar, and we'll just take a piece here which will represent the size, and then we separate it from the mesh, rename to brake lever, and hide everything out. So now the origin of this piece is from the handlebar, so we just need to reset the origin to our geometry and straighten things up. So we're working with a straight mesh. Scale on the Y here. So now we have our circle. And then obviously we need to scale the image here, as we already have the right sizing of our mesh. And you can already see that the sizing's not too far away. Straighten this up again here. Make life easier for us. And the easiest thing here is actually just to work on one side of a mesh, more like a flat piece of geometry, and then we'll extrude it out later. Save us working with double geometry. Then we can take away these back pieces so they're not in the way, and we just face up the first part of our model here. Then we use this symmetrize to get the other half of our model. For this to work, you'll need the scale and rotation to be correct and the origin to be in the center of the mesh. And then we bevel the top here to just get a curvature which looks roughly like we want it to be. It seems with almost everything we've built to do this bike, reference has been a little bit hard to come by. So, I mean, we're just trying to get a shape which makes sense. It's hard to judge the curvature of this lever, really. And now obviously it's way too soft and rounded, so we need to harden this up a little bit. Just do an extrusion here to get the depth of the clamp. It looks like we have some hidden geometry here. And here we add some edge loops just to straighten out the edges here, make them a bit harder, so it doesn't look so much like jelly. And the same thing on the inside here, we're gonna add a edge loop. And the same thing on this side. So now we're gonna add the hole for the screw here. We're not gonna add all the small bolts and screws. I don't think it's so much needed, to be honest. I think there is a few more bolt screws and extrusions on these levers, but I think what we're doing here is enough. It will be fine. Now just to stitch this together. And I'm guessing this screw is actually anchoring the lever. It's the pivot for the lever, I'm guessing. So here we need to add a screw head to one side and a bolt and a thread to the other side. This add-on here, I'm not sure if I've mentioned before, it's free with Blender, you just need to activate it. It does save a lot of time. I do find though the geometry is a little bit crazy. I mean, there's a lot of geometry in that screw. Generally I like to go in here and just take away a little bit of geometry, maybe make it a bit lighter. I do this so many times, I should probably just do one screw, save it in our asset library and reuse it, but I always forget. So therefore I always remake this screw. So the screw head, we don't need more than just a cap, and then we push the thread through here, and again there's a lot of thread for how much we need, so we can try and delete as much as we can here and just trying to fix this mesh so it's a solid piece of geometry. Let's try and collapse it as best we can here. It's not really so important, it will never be seen, but I want to make it a solid piece of mesh here. And then we can flatten this one. And it's good enough. Really the backside here, this circle hole should be more of a octagon and a hexagon to hold that screw, but again it's overkill. I don't think you're ever going to see this. So now we'll steal some geometry to start to make our lever. You can see the shading here is off, so Shift N, recalculate normals. And we remove half so we can just work with half of the mesh. If you're just tuning in to this series, I'd be quite surprised to be fair. We're about 7 or 8 episodes into building a bike, so I can imagine if you're just here joining for the first time and you see us making a brake lever, it's a bit of an odd thing to make. But go to my page or on YouTube, you should be able to find the other videos. We've made a whole process of making this bike. I'm not sure how many episodes we have left. We need to do the brake calipers and the grips to the handlebars, I think. And I'm not sure how much left. I mean, there's a lot of other things we could do to the bike. But I'm probably not going to do it. I kind of feel like I'm happily approaching the end of this series. And essentially the idea of this bike was the fact that it's very modular, a lot of texture maps covering different pieces, so you should be able to, if you are following along, change out different parts of a bike, different wheels, tires. So you can design the bike how you would like to. Here again we're just trying to get some nice edge geometry here. We're kind of guessing again the curvature of these levers. And again leaning quite heavily on our symmetrize function. One thing I notice about how I model, really I should perfect one side and then just do one symmetrize in the end, but I see that I press the symmetrize button maybe about 10-15 times, but I mean I find it kind of helps me visualize. I mean, this 2 button clicks is not the end of the world. So here we need to add this little bulb on the end. You should always never use a sphere because you get the poling at the end, which makes it look really strange. So best tip, add a cube subdivision level 2, and then you get this cubey kind of sphere where the geometry is almost perfect. And as you can see here, it's going to be great for us to stitch it into the lever. And you can see we have 16 points on our sphere and 14 points on our lever, so we need to collapse at least 2 edges here. But it works out quite nicely. We would just do a little triangle in the middle. Triangle quad-ish. And it looks fine, it looks good. There's a good connection there. So here we can try and face up. And now we would need to extrude out this piece which inserts into the main handle. And by stealing this geometry here, which we've just faced up, it will give us the ability to stitch in this piece quite nicely. So we steal geometry here. We will need to expand it out a little bit more. again just working on one side. And we don't really need to encompass this screw. Technically it should cover the screw because that's the lever point, but it's not visible in there, so we don't need to do that. We just need to make sure that it disappears in there somewhere. Then we face up this piece again. Make it a solid mesh, and then we join it to our original lever. And because we've stolen the geometry here now, we can quite easily stitch this together. The button I'm pressing here is Q. That's the quick shortcuts. So there's a few shortcuts I've added there. You can maybe freeze the video and see what I've added. There's a few which I use all the time: bridge edge loops, connect at last and center, collapse, and connect by distance. I mean, it depends how you work. Here we can try and make it a little bit nicer geometry. It's a little bit crazy here. Here we must have an internal face. Yeah, here I'm not sure where these came from. And we tighten this up so it looks like metal. And we do a bevel here just to, again, tighten up a little bit more. Needed another edge loop there. And this looks a bit nasty again here. And we also want an edge loop out here. I mean, you may have noticed not all of my I don't really sit down and plan my modelling process. I really do kind of play it by ear and just kind of go, and I think if I maybe I do it in the future, I could have just sat down and built this once on my own and then came in afterwards and recorded the video. And the second one would probably be a lot more efficient, a lot faster. Just want to flatten up this edge here. I think during our process it's maybe got a bit too curved. Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, I can't sit down, and I think out of pure boredom building the same thing twice would drive me insane. And it probably would be more beneficial for you guys to see me build something very, very efficiently. And I guess a lot of YouTubers do that. Here I've duplicated the lever and increased it in size just so I can use it as a Boolean. That's why we have two here. So I'll get the duplicate, take away the subdivision, and just Boolean the shape away from the main lever. like so. So we have that shape. But yeah, I'm not the kind of person to sit down and practice building stuff. I think if I ever got to that point, I probably would I'd be sacrificing too much time making YouTube videos. I'm here mainly for my own personal enjoyment. Here, just checking to see how to resolve the geometry so we get as many quads as possible. When you symmetrize, you get this edge loop in the middle, which we may get back a few times, but we will take it away. So we need an edge loop on the inside of this Boolean, also on the bottom, just to tighten up the edges here. So we're going to select everything in here and we'll do an inset, so we get an automatic boundary, and then try and collapse anything we don't need just to reduce the geometry. And there you can see it's tightened it up a little bit. We also need an edge back here because it's a little bit too rounded, so we can see how we can add an edge in here. If you add an edge and the edge loop travels around your whole mesh, it's a good idea to just stop it in its tracks by just hiding some geometry and then fixing the mesh afterwards. So not looking too bad right now. I think it's more than good enough. Maybe tighten up here and then collapse some unnecessary geometry. So now we add these, I guess they connect the brake cable. Again, just simple cylinders. I'm just trying to make them a little bit appealing. I mean, I add a good old bevel on the side here just to make it look a little bit more interesting, because it's just a cylinder. And this is the last thing we're going to do in the video this week. So quite a short one, 35 minutes roughly. Next up, I probably will build the brake calipers just so we can do the UVs and texture and get it inserted. But maybe next week I have another video. I have a two-parter lined up. So it does ultimately mean that this bike is taking an eternity to do if you're watching week after week, but I mean it's going to be out on YouTube for many months, years, I guess. So if you're coming to this late, everything's up and ready. It doesn't make any difference. But I do think it's kind of boring just doing exactly the exact same model every single week. It does become a bit of a grind. And also just for the channel, I mean, if you're not interested in this bike whatsoever, and I'm just putting up 8 or 9, 10 weeks of bike tutorial, then I guess there's a hell of a lot of people not very interested. Again, do these internal insets just so we get some light and shadow popping off of them. So just renaming a few things here. So there we go. Off screen now I will do an unwrap, trying to add some of the items together here just so we don't have so many pieces. Just join the meshes essentially. And when we have the brake calipers, I will then add both into a UV map into Marmoset texture, and then hopefully at the end of the next caliper video you will be able to see the entire texturing of it. And you can see here with it, just a little bevel on the side here, it does actually make it a little bit nicer for what is essentially a very boring piece of geometry. Just making a little bit of final adjustments here to the shape, which is bugging me, and then we'll try and to just roughly move it into position of our handlebar without essentially putting it exactly in the right place. I like to have it quite flat, so it makes my life a little bit easier when unwrapping. Personally, I feel so. I mean, I guess it doesn't really make any difference, but so I'll let the rest of the video roll out in silence. Thank you everyone. Drop a comment if you like this video, if you're following along. Be interested if anybody is actually following along, and I'll see you in a few weeks.